Hey everybody, this is Mike. Welcome back to the Z Motorsports shop and channel. This introductory segment is going to be covering basically two separate videos. We're going to be installing Guardian plates, which are manufactured by Chris over at Talin Manufacturing out of Florida. So those of you who are familiar with Stonevoss awning replacement fabrics, this is the other half. This is the other half of that business group. So Chris is a great guy to deal with. If you have any questions or whatever, I'm going to put a link to not only Talin Manufacturing's Guardian plates in the description, but I'm also going to include Chris's email address in the description. So if anybody has any questions or anything pertaining to that, or if they want to order these, they can click on that link. It'll take you to an email to send to Chris that you can send him the measurements, the style of floor you have, year, make, model, all that kind of stuff for your coach. I'm going to cover all that in these two videos. I'm going to do one on flat floor design, one on raised floor design. I'm going to cover some measurements, how to take the measurements, where the critical points are to measure from, so you know what to send off to Chris. How to measure for the width, whether you need, like on a raised floor, whether you need an RR300, RR600, or RR1200. It depends, so the width, depending on what roller placement, I'm going to cover that. On the flat floor, I'm going to cover where the glide bar is on the front, where it's critical that these 25-degree angle resides in, and then where to measure back to the support bracket. So I'm going to cover all those in both these videos, but they'll be distinct whether it's a flat floor or a raised floor. So please make sure, a lot of coaches have both styles, so if your coach only has one, please make sure you click on the correct video for your corresponding floor. That being said, let me back up and give just a little bit of brief history here. I know Chris does a fantastic job covering it in his videos, but I just want to give a brief overview. The Monaco Holiday Rambler design, dating all the way back into the late 90s, early 2000s, they did their slides a little differently than the industry standard. The industry standard was basically you had a floor and a sidewall of the slide, and it was encapsulated on a corner, had a corner that was encapsulated by a trim piece or a bracket, if you will. Monaco did theirs a little differently, where on their floor, they put a piece of extruded aluminum that comes and turns up only about a half an inch, and then the sidewall resides in behind that. Well, that does a couple of things. Number one, I don't think it gives a lot of real structural support, but more troublesome is the fact that along that top of that half-inch trim piece of that extruded aluminum is merely a bead of caulking that prevents water from running down onto that and basically going under the trim piece onto that floor, which is just a couple layers of plywood glued together. And granted, it's a solid floor, but we all know what happens when you get water introduced into plywood. It starts delaminating, you end up with floor rot. That's very common on these coaches. So Chris worked with a couple other people one of them was a Monaco engineer, that worked at the plant, so very knowledgeable people, and they come up with these Guardian plates. These are very nice products. They are polished stainless steel. Everything in Chris's kits are all American made, from the stainless steel to the rivets. These are a very high quality kit product, and he uses only the best quality materials. So I can vouch for that after now seeing them and put my eyes and hands on them and seeing what a fine product this is. So this is something it's not only going to be structural and hold everything together and prevent water intrusion and all that, but they actually look nice when they're installed. Now, our particular coach is a 2003 Monaco Dynasty. We bought it in 2007. I kind of had a little bit of forewarning going into Monaco's that this was problematic. So when I was looking at coaches, my wife and I were looking at coaches, this was one of the areas that I inspected very heavily. Our coach has zero floor rot issues, never has any problems. However, that being said, I've gone back and about usually once a year, sometimes a little more frequently, as those slides are going in and out and they're flexing and they're moving. There's a great deal of force involved with those moving in and out. And with that caulking just does not stay intact for very long. So sometimes a year, give or take a little bit anyway. And our coach up until a year ago resided outside, parked outside, so I was adamant and very vigilant on keeping that caulking fresh and make sure it's kept it sealed. I inspect it regularly. If any cracking or anything, I probably was a little over anal, but I would scrape the caulking out, clean it with acetone, wipe it all down, tape it off, and reapply caulking to all 3 slides because I was so paranoid of water damage, water intrusion. I've been watching these, looking at these for a little bit. I've read some good reviews, some people on the IRV2 that have installed them, that I trust their judgment. They've had them installed, and I've been very impressed with them. I was going to put them on a year and a half or so ago, maybe a couple years ago even now. But then we got caught up in the whole selling our home, moving, building a new shop. I wanted to get it done before I painted the coach, which obviously didn't happen. So now I've got freshly painted coach that stays indoors when it's not being used. But I wanted to get these put on, and I probably should have done them before I painted the coach, but you never, once they're on, you never tell. So again, I wanted to reiterate that these are a fine product. He uses 3M in his kit. 5200 is a sealant. It's a marine sealant. This stuff is amazing. They use this for hull repair and so forth on marine. So once you get it in place, it's there. And then just some clear sealant for once after the plate's all cured and everything to run a bead around the edges. So again, this is just an ongoing issue with Monaco and Holiday Ramblers. Just because they kind of broke away from the mold as far as the industry goes on their slide design. The flat floor designs fit on and go up underneath and slide over that glide bar. The raised floor design goes on, and then you have what you call roller plates, which are flat plates. And rollers vary anywhere from 5 to 7 to 9 inch. They're over on RV2, we kind of joke around about Monaco's being snowflakes because they're so unique and no two are alike. I recognized that when I was building my suspension components, putting out my Watts link and everything on my coach. These are even more so. There's no rhyme or reason as far as the ones I've looked at, my own, and plus the other probably a couple dozen that I've looked at over the last couple years. There is no rhyme or reason which rollers Monaco put with which coaches, whether it be a 5-inch, 7-inch, 9-inch. I've heard rumors of 3-inch. There's no pattern. So that's why I want to take a little bit of time on each of these videos and show how to measure what you're looking for, and then from there we will move on to the actual installation. So again, make sure you're on the correct video. I'm going to do one for the raised floor and one for the flat floor. The flat floor will have the angle because it has the glide bar. The raised floor will have the roller plates for the rollers. So that's the easy way to keep them separated. Flat floor uses a glide bar that the force that the coat or the slide, literally goes out and drops down in flat. Easy way to keep flat floor, goes out and goes down flat. The raised floor is above the floor grade. That's usually your galleys, couches, so forth, that slide in and out, and those ride on rollers. Most of the rollers are going to be chassis mounted, meaning they're going to be mounted to the actual coach along the subframe. But a lot of the galleys, and well, actually some of the other slides even actually have a inverted roller, if you will, that rolls across the tile floor. So it'll be up in like if you have a peninsula style kitchen where the cabinet kind of kicks inward a little bit, it might have a roller. That's where ours is at. It's inverted out underneath on that roller, or on that slide where it goes in and out and it rolls on the tile. That's an inverted roller. So you need to make sure when you send Chris the email, that you have the dimensions correct, as well as how many rollers you need roller plates for. So again, let me go ahead and stop here. We'll go ahead and jump into, go next door and jump into the measuring. All right, so we're going to start off with measuring, and this is this video is going to pertain to the flat floor Monaco design. Mine happens to be an HWH hydraulic slide version, but again, this video is for the flat floor that when it comes out, it drops down and is in essence flat on the interior. There's a glide bar inside that slides. It's a UHMW, ultra high molecular weight material that slides down and drops into. When you go to pull slide in, it slides up on that glide bar and slides in and out on it. So this video is going to pertain to the introduction, the measuring, the preparation, test fitting and fitment installation of the FF for flat floor, FF1200. Now the way they measure those, the 1200 series, all the Guardian plates measure 1.5 inches high. So it'll come up the side here 1.5 inches. The FF1200 also is actually 12 inches wide. So from the band over, it's 12 inches, 1.5 inches tall. It comes pre-drilled. Chris does a really good job of fitting these when he gets the proper measurements. They're pre-drilled, so they actually go in and grab a hold of, there's minimal metal structural tubing, steel tubing in here, but he is able to capture that with the pre-drilled holes. Now, the flat floor is critical that in the inside here, and the best way to measure these, slide it all the way out and then retract it a couple of inches. What that does, you've got a plate, or the UHMW, the glide bar, is on a 25-degree angle, so that allows that floor to come out and sit in. And when you retract it in, it allows this half to go up and kind of sit on top of it. Then you want to go towards about the middle of the slide. You don't want to go towards either end. You want to go towards about the middle of the slide, in probably about 1/3 of the depth, and they vary on depth. Ours is about 30 inches deep. Some of the earlier versions were only, I think, 18 to 20 inches deep. So you want to go in a ways, put a pole with a floor jack. I use a porta-power with a big 2x6 to spread the load out, but you want to slowly jack that up and get yourself up about 1 inch to get some room in there to measure. This is the critical measurement on these. I'm going to say that again. This is the critical measurement on these flat floor, or these FF1200s. The point at which that taper, that 25-degree taper, the apex of that curve, that taper right there, you have to measure from that point. So where that angle turns up, that point in which it kicks up is where you want to measure from there back. And what you want to do is you want to measure from there back to this flange on the inside of your slide. And mine's actually, I'm going to say probably close to 1.5 inches shy of the outside wall edge here of this trim piece. So you're talking this aluminum extrusion strap that runs around. That's where you want to measure to. So that is going to be your length from where that point kicks up back to here. That's the measurement you want to take for number one measurement. Because the plates come in different lengths, but I think he has an 18, a 24, and then a 30. Don't quote me. I think it's a 32 inch, maybe a 34. I think it's 32 inch lengths, and that's how he just has it for pricing. So he has 3 choices for pricing. You're not going to order one and it's going to be, yeah, I ordered that one, 32 inch, boom, it bolts right in, because he has to do some fitment on it. He trims and cuts this bottom edge away to compensate for this inner seal trim, and then also underneath, and I'll get the camera and show you underneath here, but underneath there is on most of these driver's side front slides, they also call this the street side front slide, or slide number 1. They number them from behind the driver's seat, and they number them around, so this will be slide number 1, however you want to number them. There's an angle iron up underneath there, and he needs to know that dimension as well. So you'll want to take that measurement. On my particular one, it's about 2.5 inches out from that trim piece, but it's actually about 4 inches out from the inside of this wall. So that's the other measurement you're going to want to make, because he has to make, hope this will show up, he has to make a notch here for that brace, that brace that runs lengthwise on the slide on that outer wall between the floor and the wall. So there's an angle underneath there. You need to make sure you have that measurement as well. And to be honest with you, I would make all measurements off of that point in which the floor kicks up. If you have all your measurements off of that point coming back, you're less likely to run into problems than if you run some of your measurements from there back, other ones from here going in. So I took all of my measurements off of that point back to here for the outside, then from that point back to my angle, my brace underneath, and that's all the measurements I gave him. And to order the FF1200, which is the flat floor 12-inch plate. Now, actually, I'm going to go ahead and pull the camera in and show you that bracket underneath, and then I'll pan back out and show the trim piece. Okay, so if you look closely, here is the angle. So there's a piece of 1-inch square tubing inside, and then there's a piece of angle here. So again, I would take all my measurements from the inside of that curvature all the way out to this right here on the angle on the support brace, and that's where he will trim the guardian plate to. And there's always well, I shouldn't say always, there's a high probability you're going to have a little trim here, a little trim there to have to make on these with a die grinder. So it's not a for sure thing. On my bedroom slide, I had to make a couple little like 3/8 inch pieces I knocked off. Just make sure when you do that, make a nice clean cut with the die grinder, and then knock the burrs off, trim them, chamfer them back, radius your corners, you'll be good to go. That's all he does. He cuts those little notches out with a die grinder and then radiuses them so they don't snag on anything. So again, like I said before, my slide floor is in really good shape. I had a little bit of this plastic flooring that was actually starting to catch and tear the carpet, snag the carpet. So I cut it off so it wouldn't catch it. But I have you can hear how my floor is solid. I've kept an eye on the caulking. I'm doing this more as a preventive measure than I am a repair. So I stayed on top of this for the last 11 years we've owned it and kept the caulking in good shape. So this is all preventative. But if you do have this floor sagging down, now would be the time to go ahead and get it all prepped and wiped down, so when you glue these in, you correct that once and for all. So you can change the angle here. So again, here's my angle. Square tube, the floor brace. Here's the trim piece. This is where you want to measure from that apex. You want to measure back to this leading edge right here, and that's where it's going to stop. Then you'll have a little notch here, and then it'll go under 12 inches from this outside edge under there. This is the silicone, or the caulked edge that we're going to be removing. So again, it's an extrusion, aluminum extrusion that goes under, and then the floor is laminated, or the laminated floor is sit on that. So what we're going to do is cut that off in preparation to do a test fit on this. So before I get going on that, what I recommend doing is I took a razor blade. Whenever I'd clean this out, I just take a razor blade, cut down into it, and then come back and clean it off. And it'll usually peel off. The last couple times I've been using a little different sealant, a little bit different caulking, and it's held up a little bit better. But it'll clean that off, and then I'll bring in here and show you how we cut that piece. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and jack up the center of my slide and get it up off of this lip in order to do a couple test fits. So I went ahead and trimmed. I took a combination square trimmed up 1.5 inches so I can trim this piece. I'll have to re-drill and so I can re-secure that. And this slip is what we're going to want to cut off. Also a good idea is to take a screwdriver or something and get in behind this gasket so the gasket's folded out, and then you can grab some tape and pull it back so again to kind of net you a little bit of access back into that corner, because you can't get a die grinder all the way back in there. Even an extended reach one, it's not going to get back in there far enough, so you end up having to take a gasket scraper, putty knife, something. I got an old gasket scraper here, it's hardened, and I put a little bit more of an edge on it, and it works actually pretty good to cut that by hitting it with a hammer. Next thing I recommend is taking a piece of tape. I just got some painters, some 3M painters tape here, but pretty much anything to provide some protection for the paint. You don't plan on slipping, but guaranteed Murphy will show up. So if you don't have tape here, you're going to slip. If you have tape here, more than likely aren't going to need it. At least that's how Murphy works in my shop. You plan for the worst, hope for the best, and if you don't plan, that's when shit goes awry. So, like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and give myself 1/8 of an inch or so above. And I also like to double up on the tape. So I folded the gasket back, taped it. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut down through the sealant, down through the caulking. And it'll expose that edge. Okay, once you're through that caulking, now is when you're going to want to take a die grinder. Now, what you want to do, you don't want to cut down from the top side. You want to cut this on the underside and angle your cutting wheel at a little bit of an angle. I would probably say if that's 90 degrees, I'd say probably in the 60 to 75, probably 75 degree angle range, not very far, and just go barely to the inside. I'm using an 035 cutoff wheel, and I'm just going inside. You don't need to go too far under. You're just trying to go underneath and cut it back a little bit of an angle, and then this piece will come off. You'll want to make sure and cut it out here, and then I'll usually get as close as I dare to the body over here, and then the last little bit I'll do the I'll use the putty knife or the gasket scraper. PPE is important, so make sure you have eye protection. Okay, that's free. So now that you get that little trim, and like I said, it is very small. You're only talking less than 1/2 inch. 7/16 of an inch is all you're cutting off. But you're coming in the back side at an angle, and it pops right off of there. And what you're left with is you're left with the floor and then this extruded piece. So like I said, my floor is still solid and in good shape. So now what I'm going to do is I cut through the caulking. Now I'm going to come through with my scraper, and I'm just going to knock the paint edge and the caulking off so it's flat, so there's no raised area. Then and this edge out here popped right off. So then I will go ahead in and cut it going inward. Okay, so there again, by just using that flat edge to follow that along, there's the last little bit, and I took it right out to where it ends. I caught it, and you can see that actually cut it off pretty decent. So there's that piece, and that's actually started about right there. So that's about how far inside it goes. You're 4.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just double check my caulking, make sure I got everything off before I pull the tape, and then start cleaning everything with acetone. If this would have been delaminated, this area right here would be pulled away from this aluminum trim. As you can tell, that's solid and there's no delamination. So had there been water intrusion, floor rot, this bottom laminated piece would have been bowed down, guaranteed. So at that point, depending on how bad it is, if it's the whole bottom of the floor, the guardian plates aren't going to solve it. If it's in, Chris has said there's been some of those that have been in there 18, 20 inches. You can go in there and capture 12 inches of that and take that marine adhesive and squirt it and inject it in between that void, and then as you pull everything up, it bonds everything. He says he's saved them. He saved people, $6,000-8,000 by not having to pull the slides. So that's one of the reasons why I've kept up on this. The floor is solid. There's no rot. I just deburred it there. I'm going to go ahead and pull everything apart, wipe it down, and do one more test fit. But you're going to want to do this to the front and the back of the slide the same. My recommendation would be, I've got a porta-power at one end and a floor jack with a tube at the other end to tip the whole slide up evenly. My suggestion would be is to get both ends prepped before you do any gluing or setting. Looks like I've got the floor up maybe an inch, 3/4 of an inch to an inch above the glide bar. We're going to go ahead and do one last test fit before I'm going to tape this real quick. Then I'll do one last test fit and mark on the tape with the plate, because again, it's critical that the apex of that band goes right into that bull nose on the bottom of the floor. So you want it to make contact with each side so there's no void. You want that bull nose where it turns up that 25 degrees to be right in that apex. If you've done all your prep correctly, you shouldn't have to worry about back here because you've already trimmed it as necessary. The inside is the most critical. So we'll get that centered up, we'll mark it, and then we'll go ahead and pull it out, glue it, and put it in for the final time. So I've got my tape at 1.5 inches up from the bottom, so then I can just go ahead and remove the adhesive and wipe it down with acetone once it's final installation. I'm going to go ahead and fit this up in here into the bull nose, up into the apex of that band. I'm going to, as you're test fitting these, kind of simulate the adhesive being on here. So from about where this lower notch is out, or inward rather, there's not going to be any adhesive. So I'm kind of visualizing adhesive about 4 inches back, to about 2 inches, 1.75 to 2 inches back from the band. From there back. So I'm trying, as I'm fitting this up here, kind of getting a game plan for when I do the final assembly. Okay, so it's up in. Okay, bud, go to the apex. Okay. You there? Huh? It moved? Yeah, right there. Right there? You're positive that's the apex. That's the apex. So I've got my line there, got my fitment all taking place. So now we're ready to pull it out and glue it. So there's my reference mark. So we'll go ahead and pull all the protective coating off. wipe the inside down with acetone. I've already done the underneath of the slide, and apply some adhesive. Okay, here's the adhesive. I like to kind of squiggle it around and allow a place for air to escape so it doesn't trap and make an air bubble in there. Go over here to the slide now. There, I've got the adhesive down the side. I've run along the corner there. Now we're ready to put it up in place. I've got my drill with my 3/16 drill bit. I've got all my rivets in place. Got some masking paper along the bottom edge of the paint there, and I've got a plastic drop cloth laid underneath to catch any stringers. All right, so final assembly. I've got my sun up inside. We're going to fit that bull nose, and my reference mark should line up. I'm going to put one rivet in the side here. Then I'm going to set the slide down on it to trap everything in place. My reference mark's lined up. How are you looking?
Perfect. Good.
Dead on?
Yep.
Dead on right there. Positive?
Yep.
Okay, and there's one in. Now we'll just continue our way around. So I'm going to go ahead and set the slide down so it captures that bull nose, and then I'm going to move the porta power over in the middle here to try to put just a little bit of pressure and get that glue to thin out in there. Okay, I'm going to put just a little bit of pressure on this. Carefully on this piece. Okay, so I've got it all riveted. The 5200 had oozed out along through here, so I just took my finger. You're going to want to wear latex gloves on this. This stuff is, I refer to as like bull snot. It doesn't come off very well. So if you get it on your hands, it'll have to wear off over a period of time. So I run it along there. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of acetone and do a cleanup. And this side is done for the time being. If you're, I want to comment, if you're doing this outside and there's a chance of rain, put a plastic bag or something like that above it to keep the water off it for about 24 hours. It fully cures in 7 days. So if you can leave the slides out, that's best for 7 days. If you have to run them in to travel or whatever, do it as minimal as possible. Like I said, once I glued this in place, I set it down to put the weight up on that bull nose, and then I move the porta power over in the middle and just put light pressure on it to bring everything up and evenly distribute the adhesive underneath, and then rivet it. When you're riveting, when you're using these stainless steel rivets, I highly recommend this style of rivet gun. You can use one of the hand ones, but after a couple of rivets, you're going to be sorry. That these rivets do not break off very easily. They grab. So now, while I'm speaking of that, there's a couple of these that pulled out. As they were compressing, they actually broke off slightly outside of the head of the rivet. Most of them, perfectly, they broke off right inside. I've got two of them here that are protruding out. One maybe an 1/8 and one maybe almost a 16th, maybe a 32nd. So if you get that, especially on the bottom ones, but on any of them, take a die grinder and just knock that center post off and bring it down flush. You just don't want that to snag or catch on a weather stripping gasket, your floor, anything like that. You want it to be smooth. All of my bottom ones, perfect. While I'm talking about rivets, the small headed ones go on the sides. The larger headed ones go on the bottom. So now I'm just going to take a little bit of acetone here and just see if I can give this a cleaning really quick before it sets up. And then this particular slide, or excuse me, this end of the slide is done. Then I'll go around and do the same thing to the rear. Okay, and that's pretty much all there is to it on the Guardian plates for the flat floor. Once, like I said, once you get everything cleaned up, go ahead and pull your tape off so it reveals a nice clean edge, and then they're fully cured in 7 days. So anytime after 5, 6, 7 days, somewhere through there, go ahead and apply the clear sealant caulking that Chris supplies with his kit, and just run it around the perimeter, and that's just a little added extra protection is all. So that should complete the installation of the flat floor. Okay, so this pretty much concludes the flat floor, or the FF1200 Guardian plate installation. So I've got it all riveted, glued. The only thing left is after it cures for a few days, I'll come along here and caulk this top, but I like to put a little bit along these rivet holes so that when the rivets suck in, it oozes out, and then while the tape is on there, you can go ahead and clean that edge up, and that presents a nice clean line there. So lastly, I just have these couple screws to put in. Once it finishes curing, I'll put those couple screws in and be done with that. So that's it for the flat floor design. Like I said, a couple of highlights. Make sure you take your measurements from that bull nose, from the bottom of that bull nose, the apex of it, outward, and then when you get the plates, make sure you fit them from that bull nose into that apex of that band outward. If you have to trim, you trim back here. Don't worry about fitting it back here and making it fit up there. That's how you get in trouble. So fit it to the bull nose on the on the glide bar, and then come outward, and you won't have any problems. So I've gone ahead and pushed it back out those last couple of inches, so it's sitting down on it, and it's pressed back up in. I've checked it all inside, everything's good. So now I'm just going to let it sit for the week and cure like this, and then we're done. So hope that was helpful, and hope that'll work out for everybody. These are a nice product. Chris does a really good job with these. So thanks for watching.